Hi, Rosalie.
Hi, Dan.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
And I am thrilled that after all these years of us knowing each other, you decided to take all the things you've been talking about so many years and translate it into a book called Song Leading, a Work of Art. That's what we're going to talk about today. I want to know why do you decide you had to put this down and write this book?
That's a good question. I'm really also so glad to talk to you and about something that we both are so passionate about of people singing together. Um, One of the reasons for the book, in part because of all of the song leading teaching I've been doing for so many years, was to distill in one place lots of the techniques and tips and tricks that I have learned over many years with many colleagues from whom I've learned or who have sort of walked the path with me. It's interesting because when I was first approached to think about writing the book, I thought, well, you can't write a book about something that's about human engagement, that's very lived in the body with others. To write a book about how do we sing with people? How do we listen? How do we have a sense of a feeling in a room? I can't translate that, into paper and into words. But then I realized that while there is so much of song leading, of leading communities in singing, that of course you learn and do live in the moment with humans, there are so many things about the preparation before you sing with people that can help make sure that when you are singing with people, it's really successful. That if you want communities to sing joyfully or to feel the unity of coming together around a shared purpose, even just singing a few sentences together, there are many things you can do in advance to make sure that the group feels the power and the joy of singing together. And so when I stood back, I thought, oh, well, thinking about where you're placed and are there distractions and where the group was before and where are they going and what are they looking at and can they see you? I realized there was quite a bit to say about the art, both as a technique and that song leading is really artistic. It takes creativity and wonderful sense of individuality when leading.
So tell me about the word song leading. Why that word?
Well, it's interesting because I think I'm sure other communities use it, but growing up in the Reform Jewish movement, song leading was sort of what we called group singing, usually in a camp or youth environment. Um, so for me, song leading was always what groups do when they sing together. Um, but really, the truth is, and if I were to maybe retitle it or in another edition, I would call it the art of communal singing or leading communities in song, because it's just a short sort of technical word for leading singing. We are song leading, and it can be in many forms, right? It doesn't have to be kids or camp or a guitar at a campfire. It's let's go on a journey together and let's sing together. And I'm just leading these moments of song. So for me growing up, and I think too for you, Danny, was song leading meant that's how we sing together. But clergy of any kinds, you don't have to have a great voice to be a leader of song. You could be gathering for a meeting or a moment of justice. There are people in all faiths, all parts of the world who recognize the value of leading communities in song together. And so this is
So
just a technique of that. Yeah.
two questions I'll combine. One, so you're a professional musician, you're a cantor, and cantors that sometimes perform. They sing a piece of music in order to convey a message or transform the community. And other times, they lead the community in song. Can all musicians be both performers and facilitators of communal song?
I think so, yes. I mean, because I also don't think there's such a distinction. Um, Depends on how we want to um, define perform versus leading, because I think even in song leading, it's in part why it's an art. There's choices to make. There's ways that we present ourselves. There's ways that we utilize all of our skills. So while we might think of performance as purely observational and communal singing is engaging, I think good leaders can consider what the goal is for the group. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the book, actually, as much as on technique as other things, is why. What's the point of this moment? And if the point is for a group to experience something, but maybe not vocalize it, okay, I'm going to use different techniques to ensure that the group feels something a little different and maybe isn't going to sing along. But
that's a key point, Rosalie, that a great performer is thinking about the audience, who's receiving this, and how do I need to approach the piece of music so that they get it?
Exactly. I mean, if you think of all the great performers, I've even seen great singers, whether it's opera or at a musical theater or a rock concert. They're the best ones, the ones that move me the most are song leading, in my mind. They know how they're moving people. They're using they're not just standing still, singing flat. They're using all of their body and their instincts about where to look and to encourage or to smile at the right place to make the group feel a part of something. So even if the group isn't singing, the group feels, oh, we are in an endeavor together, even if maybe we're not singing. But then if you want people to sing along, there are skills and tools you can use, but you have to have a sense of why do we want them to sing? Is it because they will feel something? Because they will learn something? We don't just ask people to sing because we want people to hear people. There has to be a reason for it. And I think it's the same with performative kinds of leading of song.
Which suggests that there's not one way to get it right, but success is motivating the recipients, the audience. It's
right.
And there are loads of skills that go into that, both as a performer and as a leader of communal singing.
Well, that's right. And in part because that's the key word, communal. It's a leader of communal singing. Every community is different. And even the more so, every community, a single community is different week to week. So I don't just use the same techniques and skills. I'm leading the community, which means what is most important here? The community. It's 10 people before a justice rally, or it's 1,000 people in a worship at a very important part of the calendar of a year, or it's 30 first graders and their parents. What does the community need? What will help them? What will help them connect? Then I decide how to lead them in song. But you're right, there's no one way because the people are always changing. The community is always changing. And part of the point of the book is, what are the many questions I can ask each time I'm with the community to say, oh, what do they need? Where were they? Oh, this thing happened. That's going to shift how I think about how they should sing. Oh, very interesting. Even before we're actually singing.
So let's think about there are two dimensions here. One is for us as the musicians, is the nature-nurture conversation. Is this innate in me, or is it a skill that I can develop? We'll talk about that in a moment. Mm-hmm. And the second thing is for the community itself, for the audience. Can you create a culture of community singing, or are there some communities or people who are just going to sit there stone-faced no matter what skills you use? So there's the community axis, if you will, and there's the leader performer axis.
Okay. Which one do you want me to start with?
Let's start with us as the musicians. Can you learn how to do this? If you don't have a good voice, can you learn how to do this if all you know how to do is perform? What's learnable?
I do think it's learnable. I think in part, I mean, there's two ways to go. The techniques, I think, are learnable in a lot of ways with practice. The thing that's maybe harder to learn, but I think leads to the most success, is how to be really connected to your group and to be a listener and to be relational. I also think that can be learned, but you could have a beautiful voice, and if you decide to play the guitar, learn 1,000,000 chords and memorize songs, and no one will sing. Because we haven't done the piece that I just spoke about who's the community, what do they need? So I think some people are born with some natural talent, but I do know people who I consider my teachers, experts in the field, They're constantly working and practicing and learning and making mistakes and saying, oh, that didn't work. Why didn't that work? So even very talented people who maybe had it by nature are being nurtured by new techniques, by learning new things about the group. I think it can be taught for performers or people who don't have beautiful voices. I mean, there are lots of people who aren't great singers, but can transform rooms and take groups on amazing journeys, because it doesn't matter how well they sing, it matters how well they connect to other people.
But there's a skill piece in here also. Okay, connection is one of the skills, but your book is really about so many other skills that you need to, disciplines that you need to have to be effective at this. So I can connect with an audience and get inside their heads. But if I haven't prepared, if I don't really know the words,
Right.
if I haven't scoped out the room and figured out where to stand so they can hear me,
It doesn't
matter how wonderful and warm I am.
Exactly.
Let's talk about skills.
Right. I mean, that's part of why I wrote the book, in part because I would have colleagues or people whom I would meet who wanted communities to sing, and they'd feel like they were doing the right things and the group wasn't singing. And it was because some of those skills, it just didn't occur to folks to think. I mean, one of the examples I use with kids is if you're in front of a window in a classroom and the kids are in front of you, but they're looking over your shoulders at the playground. You could be the best song leader, have all the right faces and things, but they're like, when do we get to go to recess? But if I've turned myself and I've made sure that they're not distracted by outdoors, my level of success will rise. And that's something that maybe folks just aren't thinking about, or things like learning the words or other things like that. So many folks want to sing with people, but they think, I'll just sing and everyone will just sing along. But singing, for those of us who don't do it professionally, is incredibly risky. It's vulnerable. If we're leading faith communities, we're often speaking in a language or maybe a theology we don't understand. And if you heard a brand new song on the radio, a pop song, you wouldn't just sing it immediately, loudly in front of people if you heard it the first time. So why are we asking people to just do something that takes some risk and open their mouths and sing next to maybe strangers without helping them, giving them the tools to feel safe and successful to do so? We can't just say, sing with me. As you said, some people might be stone-faced. That's not because they hate singing. It might be because they're nervous, or maybe they don't want to sing, but it is moving them, but they don't feel confident to do it. And I think the leader of communal singing, the song leader's job overall, is to help people feel safe and confident, because then they'll sing anything.
They'll sing anything, but what are the blockages that keep groups from singing? I'm thinking about things like words for the community. Mm-hmm. You know, my most successful moments are when I'm just looking straight at the people who are singing, and call and response options, things where they don't have to look at anything else. They're not looking out the window at the playground. They're not looking at the video screens. They're not looking at their books, but they're looking at me and hopefully at other people in the room. Mm-hmm. So I have to get past that balance between the piece of paper that has the words on it, which is the crutch for the community, mm-hmm. And my wanting to get them engaged. Can you talk a little bit about that, sort of the initial engagement, and then how you back away to allow them to own the space without you being the one who's pushing every button?
Right. It's tricky. I mean, it's a really good question. I think for many communities, particularly if they do not have a lot of experience singing together, but you'd like them to, is also to just start with something very achievable. You know, whether it's call and response or something without a lot of words. I mean, I like to have words if we assume that people know many things by heart and they don't. So there's a piece of the sort of inclusion that you might want people to have words. But in this case, I might start with something that didn't have words or had one or two words. And so that over time, particularly with repetition, if the group can feel successful very quickly, then they might, oh, we sound pretty good, or that wasn't so hard, or listen to what we made together. I mean, that to me is the ultimate goal of all of this, is that a communal singing isn't just because I love to do it and you love to do it and we think it's fun. I believe that it saves lives. I mean, I believe that people coming together can do something that they can't do alone, that communities who sing together are more cohesive. They are able to achieve more things together. There's a sense of equality and egalitarianism. So if we can get a group to just make a sound together, then it doesn't matter that I don't know you, or maybe you and I disagree about other things, or we come from different walks of life or different cultures. We've built something together and it's unified. And then I just feel strengthened. I feel more open to others because we sang. So I think the barriers can be lifted by just helping people do something that doesn't seem very hard. And then, more importantly, being intentional about what did we just do? Or listen to the people around you singing, because that's as nourishing as we made the leader really happy.
There are those, however, that say, my community has never sung and they never will sing. I don't believe that, but there are people who use that sometimes as an excuse. On the other hand, basically as an introvert, there aren't moments when I sort of resent someone forcing me to do things that at this moment I don't really want to do. So is it communities? Are there communities that will never sing, or is it individuals who may never sing? And I'm thinking about that tension.
I think it's a really good question. And I think that's actually part of the space that we're in now. I mean, in this particular moment, sort of as we're coming out of a pandemic, but in any time that we might have this conversation, is what's the balance between the communal experience and the individual experience? But I'm also an introvert, and I don't like to be told what to feel. I don't like to be told when to stand up. I don't like to be told when to clap, because I believe I should be called to do that by the experience, and it should be organic. And I've been known to sit in a room of people singing and not sing. For me, it's because I enjoy listening. But I do think a community, it might be that the community doesn't sing because the individuals don't sing. And I don't believe that in communal singing, everybody has to sing. They're not the same thing. It's about a communal sound and everyone feeling like they could sing if they wanted to, feeling the invitation to sing,
Great.
feeling that if I was asked to fill in the blank, whatever I shared would be accepted and heard. And yes, that's your story. That when I wanted to contribute, it would just enhance. And that if I don't, that's okay. And that it's about invitation. And that's, to me, song technique. If you stand and sing like this, you don't know, Danny, when to start singing with me because you have no cue. So the technique is how to invite people to sing at a moment if they choose to. But if they don't, that's okay. And at the same time, I don't believe communities don't want to sing, because all those individuals go home and they sing in the shower, they sing in the car, they go hear pop music or classical music or opera, and they hum and sing along, and they all sang to their children. Every one of them sang to their children. So that's not true. The community doesn't sing because the structure hasn't been created for them to feel that it matters, or safe, or confident, or any number of things. But
so I'm thinking of watching videos of very successful group singing sessions, and if the camera pans the audience, the community, you'll see that about 60-70% of the people are singing heartily. And there are others who are smiling, they're there, but they're not singing. So that reinforces your point. I also remember being in a mega church where I saw a whole bunch of microphones above a certain part of the room. And I asked, well, what are these? They said, oh, this is where the people who like to sing really big, heartily sit all the time. We put them into the sound system and put it into the surround PA system of the whole room, so that everyone thinks that everyone is singing.
that's right.
Not everyone is, but it's the perception that singing is the norm and acceptable, even though you don't have to do it, but you're part of a community that creates its own musical reality.
That's right. And it works. I mean, that's part of why why many people sing in circles. I have a lot of questions about singing in circles, which I talk about in the book. I think there are benefits and there are some challenges. But one of the reasons for that, both came to being able to see the other in the sort of sacred nature of seeing a human, but more technically, it actually came about because if I'm sitting in a straight row and coming from a religious tradition, I'm thinking of like a pew, and there's a leader far away, and maybe they're singing something, I might think, I could sing along, but is anyone else singing? I'm not going to look over my shoulder and say, is that guy singing? But if I'm in a circle and I see, or semicircle, and I see other people singing as participants, if I see you singing, Danny, then I might be more likely to sing than if I'm just watching the leader and thinking, I'm going to be the one person who embarrasses herself by singing. So there's something about seeing other people, hearing other people. Choirs, we often say when they're in communities, they should be planted throughout a community. So when they sing, they often give sort of courage and strength to other people. But not everybody sings. This isn't about communal singing means everyone has to sing. And why aren't you singing?
I'm thinking about the geography of particular spaces. And if all you're looking at is the back of other people's heads, you don't, and especially if it's heavily carpeted and there's not a good acoustic, you don't know if other people are singing. And if you don't know if other people are singing, you're certainly not going to sing out loud.
Exactly right. And if the amplified sound, and I believe in amplification for inclusion reasons, as well as just often strength for the participant, for the leader, amplification decreases the amount of space there is or the requirement of groups to sing. So that I'm often in spaces where if there's a band or a person leading into a microphone and it's so loud, I as the participant think, well, you don't need my voice now. You're pretty much filling up the space fine with your voice or your voices if it's a performance. But if there's amplification, but there's space for me, and if someone is encouraging me to sing along, but I actually start to sing louder and I can hear it, or I can hear the group, I find places where the amplification is so loud and the groups don't sing. I mean, it happens time and time again when bands were first introduced.
Because no one's going to notice if they're singing or not.
Exactly. And the point of singing isn't just to sing so that I can check off a box and say, I saw mouths moving. It's, what is our sound? Look what we built. I hear us. We are strong. Even if we're 8 people, we made something. We built something together. We all matter. You have to hear that. And if the amplification is so loud, I might not sing so loud.
That's a challenge for the musician, for the song leader, for the leader of communal song. You want to make sure you hear yourself a little bit. Okay, you want to know what the community's hearing. You need to hear the instrumentation if there's a band or other instruments. You need to hear that. And sometimes our leaders turn that volume up much too high. And it drowns out the sound of the community. So I'm wondering what the solutions are to that. Should we be miking the community in the monitor mix?
There's some people who do that. But I think you can be in a community with no sound. Or, I mean, I do some work with Poor People's Campaign and others in social justice spaces. They often use microphones. I mean, again, there's a need for amplification. But 2 things happen. One, it's just there. It's like song leading, to be a guide. When I song lead, I don't know that there's a single time, being dramatic maybe, where I sing everything with the community. You don't need to hear my voice. I tell this to my clergy partners who often have...
I like to sing harmony once the congregation, once the community is really getting good at the melody.
And then it encourages people to sing harmony. But if there's a prayer or a certain liturgical moment or a song that the whole group knows or a folk song, I'll just give the first couple words of verse 2 because we don't always remember. And then I'll back way off the microphone. You don't need me. You might need me to tell you that we're going back to the 3rd verse, or let's do the chorus again. I'm guiding you. But if I'm singing full volume into the microphone, every word, again, I might not be performing, but it feels that I'm asking the group to listen to me.
There's no space for the community.
Exactly. You guys, you got this. You don't need my voice. I'm over here. I'm here to keep. So I think that is solvable. It's not just about volume on the knobs. It's about using the sound to enhance. If you have the instruments, are they enhancing? And maybe sometimes are they playing a lot less? Because again, what's the why? We want the group to feel X or experience Y or to be engaged in Z. All of those things we have to make choices about.
So we've all watched sort of the beginning song leader who has a music stand in front of them with the words and the chords and is looking down at the music, thinking and singing, but thinking that that is going to get the community to sing. You know, I go to a lot of classical concerts, and when the vocalist or the soloist, even on an instrument, is reading from the score, what's the difference between that and having memorized the words or memorized the music? That takes an extraordinary amount more of prep, and the question is, dare I go out and start if I haven't totally mastered the song?
I think that the happy medium is in the middle. I mean, I think we all would agree that the more effective way of leading is by and large by heart, right? We're having a conversation, but if have to go look at my notes, and there might be a quote, and you might not hold it against me, but it feels less organic, and it feels less like I'm talking to you and more that I had a prepared statement. Now, song leaders, there's many kinds of whatever culture, whatever community sing in, there's a bazillion words or chords or notes on the piano or lyrics. So I would never say you should never use these resources. What I suggest is just recognize as our teacher, Rabbi Larry Hoffman would say, the meta communication of looking down into your music. Doesn't mean you should never do it. We got 7 verses.
Right, so reference
I have to go and check. But 2 points I'll make about that. One, if we're looking down into the music and then we're frustrated the community doesn't sing, and then we say this community doesn't like to sing, right? That's not true. One, they didn't engage with you because you were looking down, but it's not because you're a bad person. I believe it sends a message. If you as the song leader need the words and music, which is fair, then how am I in the community, in the congregation, in the group to be expected to jump in as a non-professional, be vulnerable and just, sing some words and notes if you're not sure of the words and the notes, right? So it's also this sense of if they're working, understandable, I'm even less likely to say, oh, just give it a try and jump right in, which is why I would say as the song leader, sometimes you just give it a try. You either trust or, again, if the goal is communal singing, it's okay if you make mistakes. It's okay if I've been known to say, 3rd verse, can't remember how that starts. And someone gives it to me and I say, let's just sing the chorus again. I didn't bring the lyric and I forgot the 3rd verse. So there's a sense of what's the goal. And if it's really just to sing together, we're going to sing together, even if it
Right, you have to exude a confidence that this is going to work.
And again, a commitment that the group is going to sing together sort of regardless. But if I'm in my music because I just learned it or I'm very nervous about the chords, Rosalie would say, don't play the guitar. Sing about your guitar because the guitar is now a distraction.
So you just raised guitar. I have 2 final questions. One is, do you need to have a guitar to be an effective song leader? Or do you need to have a keyboard to be an effective leader of communal prayer?
No. I mean, no, you don't need an instrument to be an effective leader of communal prayer. It adds some things in the same way sometimes it gets in the way. Again, in our sort of Reformed Jewish world, often the guitar in camp settings was a symbol of song leading. And we often expect that the song leader would play guitar. It is helpful because it's a rhythm instrument, because it gives harmony and key. It's often a crutch in a good way, or there's some safety sometimes behind the guitar. And I know extraordinary song leaders who don't lead with instruments. I do some work with the church community who is reclaiming paperless singing. I know lots of folks who, for whatever reason, don't play instruments. Their singing is powerful. And I think it's in part because they don't have an instrument. They're vulnerable. They invite the vulnerability of the group because they're just putting their voice out there and taking a risk that I think encourages people. And I think unless you're really skilled, the guitar and the chords and the strumming and the volume. And we think if we have a guitar, people will sing along. But I've been in many situations where people's guitar playing means that the group actually won't sing because they can't hear the words because somebody's playing guitar and not singing. So it helps. Certain environments, it's excellent, as I said, for rhythm, but you do not need any instrument to song lead, and you can song lead from a piano. You can song lead with bells or anything tool you use. If the goal is for the group to sing, you think about what does the group need? What are my skills? to help them do that.
So I think you've done extraordinary work in putting this this book together. And one last question for you. This book is important because communal singing can change worship. It can change the feel of an assembly. It can change a community. It can change lives. But it doesn't happen magically. It only happens if one human being thinks really hard about how am I going to make this change happen. I think music's always had that role in the world. But leaders need to be very conscious. It's not magic. And your book tells us these are some skills that you can become conscious of to make the magic happen. It's not really magic.
It feels, I mean, it should feel magical when it's done well, when people are really singing. It should feel transformative. It should feel like something happened that we did, not something happened that I observed. We made something important happen.
We create spiritual moments. And that's the most satisfying thing in the world. So I want to thank you for all the efforts you put into this book. And to everyone who's watching this, listening to this, please go out, find the book. It's available through Transcontinental Music Publications. It's available on Amazon. It's called Songlleading, a Work of Art by Rosalie Will. Thank you, Rosalie.
Thanks, Danny. So good to be with you and to talk about such an important topic and have this book be just the beginning, hopefully, for many on this wonderful sacred journey. Good to talk to you.
Take care.